Alafiani, it is the Elosha, Apetabi Ola Omi, Oshumiemi Akalatunde, coming to you with my last video for today, for this evening, day 9 of the Cocoa Cure Fast, and tomorrow will be the last day. So, been really not having any kind of trouble eliminating today. So, I know that my intestines and my colon are clean and clear. So feeling happy about that, and I'm looking forward to breaking my fast with some delicious raw foods. I haven't decided exactly what I want to have, but I think I'm going to do a kale nori roll, or I may do a raw tuna salad nori roll, or some combination of the two. So haven't decided, still thinking on it, still rolling it around in my brain at this point in time. But I was meditating on something today, just doing a walking meditation, just throughout my day. This was something that I was thinking about. And I suppose that the central thought of it is the thought of fear, or the emotion, I should say, of fear, and how people allow that to be their primary motivating force in life. And what started me on this train of thought was a wonderful video that I watched by Nubia Sutton, who is the Black Raw Food Goddess. And you should definitely be subscribed to her YouTube channel. She is forever putting up very inspirational, very uplifting, very life-centered information. So please subscribe to her YouTube channel, Nubia Sutton. And she did a video, I guess a few weeks, it may have been a week or so ago, I'm not sure about the time frame, about women stepping into their power, especially when it comes to leaving an abusive relationship or any kind of abusive situation, negative job situation, negative neighborhood, anything of that nature. She was saying, step into your power, know who you are. And I was thinking about that. Well, that caused me to start thinking, and I kind of, let my thoughts just flow forward from that. And I came up with a question that I wanted to pose just to everyone in general, but definitely to individuals who practice any religion that tells you that your oppression is necessary for your salvation. Why would you worship a God who says that in order for you to be close to Him, you have to be oppressed? In order for you to be close to Him, you have to be abused, and that your abuse is what He finds pleasing. It's pleasing in His sight to see you abused. It's pleasing in His sight to see you oppressed. Why would you worship a God like that? And while I was musing on it further, I realized that the reason that women continue to worship these gods and follow the rules that these particular gods are supposedly um, making is from out of fear. You are afraid of not being given access to the paradise that this God supposedly has the keys to. This God determines whether or not you're going to get into paradise. And so you have to do everything that He says in order to be allowed into paradise. So then my second question is, why would you want to be in paradise with a God who finds it pleasing for you to be abused, and who finds it pleasing for you to be oppressed? I don't want to be in that God's paradise, because I am sure that in that paradise, He's going to continue to require my oppression and my abuse. So you can't allow fear to govern your life. Can't allow fear to be your reason for doing this. Well, I'm doing this because I'm afraid if I don't do it, then I won't get into this paradise that this God has, said that I can get into if I do exactly as he says, even if it's horrible for me, even if it feels bad for me, even if it makes me feel belittled and demeaned. I have to do these things because if I don't, I won't get into paradise and I will instead be suffering for all of eternity. But you're suffering now. You're suffering in this lifetime. Your life is a hell. So you think that if there's a God that finds it pleasing to see you living in hell, that once you're in the afterworld, he's going to find it pleasing to see you happy, but he doesn't find it pleasing to see you happy in your life. That is a ridiculous assumption. That is a ridiculous assumption. And it is nothing but fear of eternal hellfire that keeps you in that position. That's all. And you put up with the hellfire of now because you are believing the foolish supposition that it will end with your death. That is ridiculous. The way that Western religions are set up is to have you worship at the feet of an abusive sky daddy. It's just an abusive man. Everything that comes down as a rule from that particular deity, if that deity even exists, is something that has to do with you maintaining a position of being oppressed and being abused. Why would that be necessary? Why is a God like this even worthy of worship? I don't find it to be. 20 years ago, I said to myself, I will no longer worship any God that tells me that by virtue of my birth, I am cursed. And therefore, my oppression is what is supposed to happen. I am supposed to be oppressed by virtue of my birth. 20 years ago, I said, I will worship no God that says that. So if you tell me that I am cursed because I'm a woman, then you're not worthy of my worship. If you tell me that I'm cursed because I'm black, then you're not worthy of my worship. Because my hair is curly, you're not worthy of my worship. And so you don't get that. We have to move out from under fear. Fear cannot be your governing force. When are you ever living your life fully if all that you are doing is moving in fear? You're not living your life fully. You are not even living your life. You are living the life that someone else tells you you have to live. There is no way that the universe intends for fear to be our motivating force. There is no way that that is what is true. Is that what we see with the trees and the flowers and the fruits and vegetables that grow? Is that the norm for them? Do they appear to be growing out of fear? They don't. They appear to be growing out of love and nurturing and care. And so this is the same thing that the universe offers us. We just have to embrace it. And any love that you embrace, you cannot embrace it fully unless you're embracing it from the perspective first of self-love. How much do you love yourself? I love myself too much to prostrate before any God that requires my oppression. I love myself too much for that. And if that damns me, then I will be damned. I am fine with that. I don't believe that it does. I know that it doesn't. I don't operate under a system that says that this will damn me. But if it were to be so, then I would go ahead and be damned as well. I love myself that much. You don't get my supplications. You don't get my praise. You don't get my prayer. If what is required for me to get, if what is required when I give you that is my oppression and my abuse, I don't do that. I don't worship any deity that does not respond to my very presence and my very essence with an overflowing of love. And when you put yourself in the position of moving in love and moving in trust with the universe and take yourself out of the mindset of moving in fear, then you will find that the universe meets you exactly where you are and embraces you exactly where you are. And all of the fears that you've had in this lifetime will begin to fall away. I remember, like most of you, I was raised practicing Western traditional religions. And I won't name, I'm not going to name them. We all know what they are. So I'm not going to name them. I'm not going to even give them the luxury of having me call their name. They don't even get the sound of my voice. But I was raised practicing Western tradition, just as most of us are. And my entire life had thousands of fears around it. So I was raised by my mother. My mother was a single parent. Ibarra Taroom. She is now an honored ancestor. And Black women, women of African descent, are so deeply spiritual. So we were, moving through our house in this very, very spiritual way that is just the norm for us. We talked about our dreams. We discussed our dreams. We dealt with our intuitions and our feelings and our visions. But in the midst of that, we were trying to then feather in this ridiculous Western traditional religion. So in the midst of that, you have all of this fear that, a demon might come into your body. And you have all of this fear that something horrible may happen to you if you say something wrong, if you do something wrong, if you look wrong. Your life is surrounded in this fear and you feel so restricted. And you feel so bound and so tight, you don't feel free. There's no way you can relax and spread out the way that you need to in order to live life fully. So it was such a relief and release and blessing to me when I discovered the traditions of my ancestors, specifically the worship of the Orisha coming out of the Yoruba land area of West Africa. It's now called Nigeria and Togo and Benin. Specifically, when I discovered this tradition that I continue to practice today and have the honor of being a priestess in, it was such a relief. It was such, I just received immediate relief. I just was blessed immediately to be relieved of that fear and to know from in here that I didn't have to live based on that fear. And so many of the things that I had suffered because that fear kept me in such a position of anxiousness then just fell away. I've had migraines since I was 11 years old, up until the point that I began to worship the Orisha. I suffer from very, very terrifying nightmares since I was at least 3. The first one that I remember having, I was 3. And I was released from those when I began to worship the Orisha. It released me from the fear and from the anxiety that is associated with the fear, and therefore any of those conditions that were associated with fear and anxiety. So I want everyone to be free. I want everyone to feel that kind of freedom and that kind of release and to have that ability to move through life as you and as this little fearful person who thinks, well, let me stay in this state of abuse in order to please, this abusive sky. Let us turn away from the abusive sky daddy. How is the abusive sky daddy worthy of our ashe? What is he doing to prove himself worthy of our ashe? In my book, Ona Akbani, I speak of the Western concept of God And when I first began to practice African tradition, I was told that, in the Inago or Yoruba language, Olodumare is just another name for God. And so I moved with that for a few months. And then as I began to study and learn more and meditate and pray and learn more, I realized that Olodumare is not the Yoruba word for God. Olodumare is something totally and completely different from the God concept of Western traditional religion. She is a different being, a completely and totally different being. Anything that was moving through the universe with the type of negativity that this Western God concept is moving through the universe with would not have been deemed worthy of worship by ancient people. That obviously would have been a spirit that was in need of elevation, a spirit that moves with jealousy and with hatred, a spirit that charges its followers to commit genocide and requires the oppression and abuse of certain members of its own personal worshipers. That spirit would not have been deemed worthy of worship by our ancestors, and therefore it was not. So why are you worshiping it? Why are you giving your prayers to it? Why are you giving your supplications to it? Because you're afraid. I made a Facebook status update and I discussed it with my oldest daughter years ago. We talked about this. And what I said is, I worship Oshun because I find her to be irresistible. She's so beautiful. She's so sweet. She's so loving. She's so perfect that I cannot resist worshiping her and giving her praise and turning my life over to her. That is what worship should be about. Worship should not be, I'm doing this because I'm afraid of what you're going to do to me if I don't do it. That is abuse. Everybody is clear that that is abuse. If there was any other entity, human being in your life, be it your husband or wife, be it your boss, be it a friend, and you said, I only do things with this person because I'm afraid of what they're going to do if I don't, then you would be clear that that was abuse and that that wasn't good for you and that there was no way that that could be uplifting you and making you better. Well, your God does not get to be abusive either. Love yourself more than that. Love yourself above that. You have Ashe. You are divine. You exist. And by virtue of your existence, you are precious. You are sacred. And nothing can require for you to give your power. You have to give it. So be very selective about who and what you give your power to, who and what you offer your power to. So I'm tired. My contacts are bothering my eyes, so I apologize if I was blinking over much. But once I get to be um, sleepy to a certain extent, I can't speak properly, and they start to dry out. So I am going to lay it down and rest, and I will tune back in with you guys tomorrow for that last day of this Cocoa Cure fast and to share any thoughts and revelations that have come to my mind. I pray that your sleep and your rest is blissful. I pray that your travels in your dream time are blissful and wonderful and prophetic, and that they offer you visions on the wonders of your life. I shall. Good night.